right, guys, welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. If you are watching today's podcast, you can go ahead in the comments and make fun of me for my tan lines. For those of you that are listening, I have the raccoon eyes, the sunglass raccoon eyes tan lines, and then today I had my face mask, my sun shield, as they call it, the face mask. I had it just below my shades, so there's a little gap between the shield and my shades. So now I have my tan chin and cheeks, and then I have this line right above my nose, under my eyes, that's super red, and then just pale white. So it's hilarious. If you get a second, go over to the YouTube and make fun of me in the comments. That'd be kind of enjoyable to see what you guys could come up with. But today we have a pretty cool podcast on. We have Mr. Will Stolski, another Minnesota dude, but he's been all over the place. Florida, he's in Montana, Alaska. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. We're going to talk to him about it. We're going to sit down and talk about what it's like to be a guide, and a guide not in just one location, but all over the place, all over North America. So that's going to be pretty sweet. But before we get into today's podcast, I want to give a huge shout out to Douglas Outdoors for sponsoring the Serious Angler podcast. Today, actually, I went out on a local lake, got on some spawning smallmouth and largemouth. Pretty much the rod that I put to use today was the Douglas X Matrix, the 6103 XF, which is my drop shot rod. But today I threw a light Ned rig head on, and basically all I had to do was soak it in the bed, and it was a little bit choppy, so I was line watching. I was choppy enough where I could see the bed, but I had a hard time seeing the fish. So basically I would cast in, past the bed, drag into it, soak it in the bed, and just line watch for ticks in the line, watch my line moving side to side. And basically that's what I did today with the 610 3XF Douglas X Matrix. Like I've mentioned before, there are two lines of Douglas. There's the LRS, the Lake River C, and then there's the X Matrix being the bread and butter that Douglas has created. So if you want to get one yourself, head over to douglasoutdoors.com. Check them out. You can get them online at Fish USA, Tackle Direct, as well as many dealers near you. So if you guys have any questions on them, feel free to go to Serious Angler on any social media or my personal social media and reach out with a question you might have about the rods. But without further ado, let's get into today's podcast with Mr. Will Stolski. Oh, look at that. We got numbers this time.
Is it working? Is it working? It's working. Okay, good.
Tried this. We had some technical difficulties, but we got Mr. Will Stolski on here. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. We've been trying to do it for a while now. It just got busy,
It's been like a few weeks in the making.
I think so. But yeah, it's good. Everything's working so far. Knock on wood. So
yeah, right.
I think we'll get.
Moment. Let's do it. Let's
right on.
All right, we were on a tangent before I rudely interrupted you, so we could start recording our podcast.
Yeah.
Before we continue that, for everybody listening and watching, tell them a little bit about yourself and how you got into fishing and who embraced you to fishing.
Sure. So I'm from Minnesota. I'm from Brainerd, which is about 2 hours north of Minneapolis, for those that are familiar. Actually, Hayes we had on earlier. Hayes Ball, he's a good buddy of mine. So I'm from Brainerd, and I just kind of grew up fishing. I guess my dad's a fishing guide, so I really didn't have a choice, So I started fishing. I mean, when I was really young, and then it just kind of developed from there. And now, for better or for worse, fishing is kind of my main source of income. But no, I've been fishing since I was really young, and I'm 23 now, so it's been, for the most part, really, really good. So
that's awesome. And for people that may not know it, and I don't know fully well as well, is that you are a guide in multiple states, correct?
Yeah. So, well, I should be. It's a good story. So so this winter I spent the winter down in Florida, and I was guiding down there in the Naples, Fort Myers area, saltwater fishing. And then in the summertime, I go to Alaska and I guide there. But that has kind of changed now because of all the virus stuff. So yeah, so unfortunately, I'm not going to Alaska this summer, and so now I'm in Montana right now. But yeah, so it's kind of, I guess it's kind of a good story how I ended up in Montana. So I can talk about it. So
Heck yeah, dude.
yeah, so I was down. Like I said, I was in Florida this winter, and I've been guiding in Alaska for the last couple of years now in the summertime. And when I started when I was in college, and I went to school in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and so it was like pretty easy then, because you get done with Alaska in the summer and then you just go back to college. I mean, it was like, the best summer job ever, right? So I mean, you come back and yeah, I mean, it was a piece of cake. But then I graduated from school last spring, and so then I went to Alaska, and then I came back this fall, and it was like, okay, like what am I gonna do now? Because I didn't have school to go back to. And so then I worked around Brainerd for a little while, just kind of doing some odds and ends stuff. And then I ended up going down to Florida in the wintertime in January. And then I was guiding down there, and that was all going really good. And I kind of thought like, okay, this will be like, this will be the program I run. I'll just go to Florida, for 8 months of the year, Alaska for 4. Like, this is all good. Like, it was all going really perfectly. And, then the big C hit, and it kind of changed like overnight, and for, a lot, like for a lot of people. And then people just started canceling their trips and, stopped coming to Florida for vacation. And you fish a lot of tourists down there. And I totally understand, I wouldn't want to be on a plane going to Florida when all that stuff was happening. So I pretty much lost my job down there. I was only working a couple days a week. So I was kind of like sitting on my hands down there and like pretty bored. So I got a buddy of mine who's up in Bozeman, Montana, where I'm at right now, and he owns a construction company. And so I called him, but I was like, hey, like, do you need some extra help, for a couple months before I go up to Alaska? Like, I'm unemployed, basically, bored, like, always wanted to go to Montana. I was like, that's a good excuse, And he's like, yeah, he's like, can you be here? I called him on on a Wednesday, and he's like, can you be here by Sunday? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I packed all my stuff up in Florida and bailed out of there, and then drove up like the 40 hours it was to Montana. So now I've been in Montana since then. It's been great. I love it out here. So
Montana is awesome. I've been to Bozeman. I flew into Bozeman. I take it back. I flew
okay.
into Bozeman the summer after my senior year of high school. We went on a 2-week trip just to hike and fly.
Yeah.
And it's just abs. I mean, if you've never been to like the West, like Montana, what would you consider that? The Northwest, or would you just call it Central?
Yeah, I guess I just call it. I mean, I consider it West.
West.
But yeah, like I guess Pacific Northwest, that would be, Oregon, Washington, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it's cool out here, especially when you're from, Minnesota, where it's just like flat, there's no mountains. Yeah, it's badass here. So yeah, I mean, I'm really liking it. And, I'm just happy to have a job, to be honest, so, I know a lot of people right now are kind of, yeah, it's a tough time,
Very. It is a very tough and confusing time, and I guess the best way to put it is it's day by day. Unless you're in an essential position where your job is secure, you're pretty much you're what exactly what I said. You're day by day. But,
right. And
we're figuring out here and there. But man, to be in Montana, like I'm an upstate New Yorker, Western New Yorker, however the heck you want to call it, and we have beautiful country up here. Nothing will ever compare to when I went out to Montana. That was the most beautiful country I have ever been in. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool because it's just big, and it's it's pretty. I mean, mountain stuff, but it's like it's open. There's a lot of space, and that's kind of the one thing I didn't like about Florida that much living there. Anyways, it's just like I lived in Naples, so like everything is kind of right on top of you. I mean, it's a busy place, and I like the fishing there a lot, but then the living, I was like, kind of so on. But yeah, so I drove up here, and then I was actually, planning to go back to Alaska, like, right now. Usually I would go at the end of May, and got a call from my boss up there like 2 weeks ago, and he's like, "Hey, like we got to cancel. They're not even gonna open their lodge up there, just kind of out of precaution, basically."
Yeah.
Guys are still fishing up there, and especially all the local guides and stuff. But yeah, I mean, and I don't blame them. And I think there was a fair share of cancellations too, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, it kind of threw a wrench in my whole summer plans. But luckily, I've still got a job, and I'm just gonna stick out here and work construction and do that thing for the summer, and then I'm gonna hunt around here this fall, and then kind of see where I'll go from there. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do after that. I might go back down to Florida for a while. I don't know. It's, I'm just I'm just taking it like, a couple of weeks at a time. So
I mean, that's what we got to do at this point. But it's good that you're taking it glass half full. You're being appreciative of the work you got, because a lot of people would kill for work right now.
Yeah, 100%. So
yeah.
I mean, it's not being a fishing guide in Alaska, but it could be way, way worse. So, and I'm in a place where there's, really good fishing. Of course, that was kind of like the main reason I wanted to come. Everywhere that I've gone, I've always tried to base it around fishing. It's kind of, influenced every major life decision. So yeah, I mean, good fishing, like you said, lots of good trout fishing here, and not really any bass fishing, at least close to where I'm at, but walleyes and that kind of thing. I'm a pretty big fly fisherman, so the trout fishing stuff is cool for sure.
Yeah, man. If you're interested in some really cool smallmouth fishing in Montana, when we get offline here, I'll hook you up with a guy that I know through Douglas, and he gets on some gigantic smallmouth in Montana.
Yeah, dude, I would love that. I mean, that's kind of the one thing that you kind of miss out here is you're pretty much trout fishing most of the time. And I like trout fishing, and especially fly fishing. It's fun, but you do miss fishing for stuff that gets a little bigger and that kind of thing. And growing up, that's like all I did was bass fish, in Minnesota. I mean, that's it for basically up until I went to Alaska. That was like, I mean, I fished a lot of tournaments and did that thing. And then going to Alaska, it kind of ruins you a little bit, as far as other fishing, just because it's the fishing is so good up there, and they're big, and fishing for salmon is a lot of fun. So then it's like constantly comparing other places to Alaska, and like I kind of remind myself, like, okay, you can't do that, it's Alaska for a reason,
Exactly. Yeah. So when you're down in Florida, or so Alaska, you mentioned you have a cottage. I think I got that right. There's a house you stay in, I'm assuming, with other guides as well up north?
Yeah, so when I'm in Alaska, I stay right. I work for a pretty good sized lodge. It's on the Kenai River,
Okay.
and so it's really a sweet deal. So you stay right at the lodge, and they have just like one room cabins, and so yeah, I mean it's sweet. They let you live there, and they feed you, and it's all the equipment and stuff up there. Well, as far as like boats and trucks goes, it's all theirs. So like you're not really incurring any big costs while you're working there, which is really, really nice. And so yeah, I would just stay up there, in this little cabin, and then in Florida, when I went down there, I got really lucky. So my grandparents have a place down there, so I had a place that I could stay at, for very, very cheap, and which was good because Florida, especially Naples, is really expensive, and so I was able to stay down there and kind of get my feet wet, and I really wanted to go down there just to kind of learn the fishery a little bit. That was like my main goal. And yeah, I mean, ended up the fishing down there. It's not super hard. I mean, what we were doing anyways. I mean, you can saltwater fishing is pretty good down there. So yeah, that was cool. I stayed down there and then kind of just buzzed back up here, and yeah, now I'm just renting a place up here with one of my buddies from home. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, I have grandparents that live in, I believe it's called Placida, right next to Boca Grande.
Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah,
that's good fishing.
Well, you've been to Fort Myers now and then, but yeah, like those places are very expensive because my parents in it. But my brother and I have been thinking about in the next few weeks here taking a trip down, staying with our grandparents and going fishing for a couple weeks. But
you should, dude. It's probably pretty good tarpon fishing right now.
Well, I believe, and I am totally not 100% on this, so you would know 100% more than me. Is that the mullet run is about to start down there? Or
yeah, so the tarpon, they start and and I know a little about it, but not, you know, a ton. But the tarpon migrate up the coast of Florida. So they'll start down, you know, kind of around the Keys and stuff, and then they migrate up the Gulf side, and they'll go up, they'll get to like the Panhandle, and then in the fall they'll start to come back down. So like now is like, you know, kind of prime tarpon time. It starts like late spring, and that was kind of the really like downer was right when I ended up leaving Florida, like when, you know, everything kind of hit the fan and we weren't working. It was like fishing was like on fire and tarpon were just starting to get going. And like I was like super jazzed about that. I mean, tarpon, they're just, you know, they're just badass. Yeah. And so I like really wanted to tarpon fish, and then, you know, basically just had to pull the plug, and then I left, and I hooked one when I was down there, right like the day before I left. It was pretty big. I mean, I had it hooked not very long, but you know, my guy I was fishing with figured it was like probably 150 pounder. I mean, it was huge. I'd never hooked one before. It was nuts.
That's great. So what do you guide for when you're down in Florida?
So we were fishing a lot of like kingfish, bonita, mackerel, basically all kind of near shore, offshore stuff. Some snapper, some grouper. You know, the guy that I worked for, he had a pretty big boat, so we weren't really doing the backwater stuff. I did that a lot when I like just for fun, like fun fishing, and that's cool. You know, that's almost more like bass fishing, you know, because it's shallow water. It's a lot of sight fishing. It sort of translates to guys that bass fish like pretty well. But we were mostly doing, you know, offshore stuff, and which was cool. I mean, usually you could get on like once in a while just a huge giant school of bonita, you know, and just sit on top. And we catch them on like big poppers. Like, I mean, like poppers like that, like you were bass fishing, like for smallmouth. But like, I mean, you know, you'd be working it like, boom, 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 and they'd come like out of nowhere and like be launching themselves out of the water trying to eat it. Like, it's just insane. So yeah, they're cool fish. I mean, bonita are, and they're kind of, I don't know, like people kind of look down on them a little bit because they're like in the tuna family, but they don't taste as good as the tuna. Yeah. But dude, they're awesome, and they're great shark bait too. Yeah, we did a lot of shark fishing down there. And that was fun too. I mean, for a guy from Minnesota, you know, to catch I mean, I wasn't catching them, but the clients were, you know, a lot of sharks, and some days you'd catch like 10, you know, and, yeah, so that was sick. It was just a really cool experience. You know, I got to do a totally new kind of fishing, and, you know, fish like pretty much new water for me. And so that was cool. I mean, I learned a lot, and, you know, I was happy I got to do it for sure.
That's awesome, dude. It's cool that you can go guide literally around North America. I mean, at this point, I mean, you're all over the place, which is pretty cool, and to be able to work in that and be able to experience it all in the same it's pretty incredible. I mean, favorite fishing I've done down in Florida, like you just mentioned, the backwater stuff, is we went to this place called 19th Street on Boca Grande where you can launch kayaks and everything.
Sure.
And it's just a whole stretch of mangroves and docks. And I was skipping a Z-Man swim bait under. It was like at the scented paddlers or something like that.
Right.
And I was skipping on that. I'm like, I'm just bass fishing at this point.
Yeah,
I'm snook, and I'm like, this is like home, but instead, you know, the fish it's like bass on roids, pretty much is what.
Yeah, exactly. It's like catching, you know, like a smallmouth on steroids. I mean, that's really like what it reminded me of. So yeah, I really like that. I mean, that kind of fishing is cool, especially when you get in like really skinny water, you know, and that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, if I had a choice between the two, like the offshore and the backwater, I mean, I'd probably choose the backwater, just like personally. But you know, the offshore stuff was a little more like family friendly. I mean, the people didn't have to, you know, kids didn't have to make like really tight casts and that kind of thing. So it set up well for us. We did a lot of families.
You're not getting lures snagged out of trees and.
Yeah, exactly. There's no trees when you're 9 miles offshore. So.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So that definitely helps.
Do you have any like crazy guide stories, like things that happened to you, well, like regardless of location, but stuff that might have been just like that just sticks with you? You know, those memorable habits.
Well, when I was down in Florida, this past winter, I actually had to get stitches in my finger. So we were fishing. I was fishing with my buddy Sobe. He's on YouTube. He's got a pretty good following on there. But he was down visiting, and we were out fishing, and we caught. Can't remember who caught it, but it was like a pretty good sized king mackerel, and they've got like super like razor sharp teeth. And they've like kind of like nicked me before, but I was like going to get the hook out, and it's just like a little like 2/0 circle hook, like it wasn't very big. We were just fishing bait, and I wasn't like really paying attention and like didn't have a pliers. I was just like gonna pop it out, and the fish like kind of torqued on me, and it cut my finger like straight down and like really really deep, and I thought it was like gonna be okay, you know, and like tried to wrap it up really tight because we hadn't been fishing that long, and it was just like dumping blood, like just absolutely pouring. Like I was looking on my phone, we were taking pictures with the fish, you know, like Sobe's holding it up and I'm next to him, and it was like the live picture, you know, so you could hold down on it. And like I held down on one of them, and like you could see the blood just like pouring out of my finger, you know, like it wouldn't stop bleeding. So then I actually had to go get stitches when we got back, and like that was at like the height of Corona, like, and so I was like, oh my god, like I got to go into the clinic. All these people are going to be going in there thinking that they're sick, and they might be sick, you know. Like I was trying to like stay far away from people down there, you know, but I had to go in, and the doctor's like, yeah, it's probably good you came in because it was like, you know, really really deep, and so they had to stitch it up and stuff. But I guess that was probably the worst, like, you know, injury I've sustained. It wasn't that bad, but it sucks. It was my right hand. It was my pointer finger too. So it's like really hard to tie knots without your right pointer finger.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
Like you don't think about it, but like I got like it was a challenge, like because I didn't fish the next day, but then I went the day after that because we were busy still, so I like wanted to keep working, and they had it in like a splint, so I couldn't. It was like immobilized. And so like the first time I went to go like tie it, like I could barely do it. Like, you know, you had to use your middle finger, and like it was really, really tough just to do anything without your right pointer finger. You don't realize how much you need it. Like no dexterity. It sucked. But it's all good now.
Do you ever run into any grizzlies or anything like that up north?
Yeah, I got like
Montana too. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen any here, but there was one time in Alaska where like I got pretty close to one. So where I fish on the Kenai, it's a pretty busy fishery as far as like the amount of boats there, and it's like a 3-hour drive from Anchorage, so it's not remote by any stretch, you know. So it's a really really busy high pressure fishery, but they have huge salmon runs, and so the fishing is usually pretty good. But we weren't fishing the actual Kenai. We were fishing like kind of a more remote, kind of a little bit of a hike in tributary of the Kenai. So what happens is like in August and September, the sockeye salmon will get into these tributaries to spawn, and then the trout will follow them in there, and they'll just sit behind them, and then they just eat at their eggs as they're spawning. And so the trout fishing is like unbelievably good sometimes there. Like, I mean, you could literally just sit there and you just fish like a bead. And I mean, you can just stand there and plant your feet and catch, you know, like 40, 50 trout in like one spot, and big trout too. But it's really berry up there just because there's so many salmon, you know, and then usually the bears like don't give you any trouble just because they're like content, you know, they're eating food. Yeah. Like they don't look at you as like as a meal, you know, when they have thousands of salmon around them, they're like, I'm not gonna waste my time on this human. But so I was fishing, and I had like 3 clients with me, and we were kind of walking around like the bend of the river. And a lot of times you can smell them. They have like a really like distinct smell, especially like the males. It's kind of like pungent. It's really like ripe. And so I kind of like got a whiff of one. But where we were fishing, like that happens quite a bit. I think there's more than like you are aware of. Like, you know, because they don't want to, like, they can hear you coming usually, and you like make a lot of noise and stuff. But we like came around the corner, and then like maybe, I don't know, 15 yards away, there was like a giant male just sitting on the gravel and just eating salmon. And like the one thing you don't want to do with brown bears, at least from what I've been taught, is like run away from them. So because then they think you're food, you know, if you're fleeing from them. So I had my clients like behind me, and like we came around the corner, and everyone just kind of, you know, just like froze. And I was like, okay. I was like, guys, just like stay still, you know, like don't move. And like I had bear spray, but it sounds bad, but it was like in my backpack. I didn't like have it. I didn't have it on me. But like if a grizzly really wants to mess you up, like if a big coastal brown bear wants to take care of you, like like you're pretty much toast, you know. And you don't got to be the fastest, you can't be the slowest. So but I was standing there, and like it saw me, you know, and it knew I was there. And then like you're supposed to like make yourself like look big, you know. Well, I'm not a very big guy, you know. I'm like 5'9" with a good pair of shoes on, you know. So like I'm standing there, dude, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this thing, you know, is huge. Like and they can cover ground fast. So like he could be on me in like seconds. And he kind of looked at me, and I was like looking at him, and I was like, come on, dude, just like go back in the woods. Just like, we'll turn around, but just like go back in the woods. Like we'll leave you alone, you know? And he kind of stood up, and like looked at us, and he kind of like surveyed the situation, and then he just turned around and like walked right back into the woods. And it was like, I was like, oh my God, like, like, thank you. Like, you know, and so then I spun my clients around and like, we walked back, you know, upstream and went back to where he came from. But yeah, that was like the closest I'd ever been, you know, to I guess a bear or anything that big, you know.
My gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly, but I mean, it was cool. It was cool to see one that close. Obviously, I'm happy it worked out the way it did.
Yeah,
You
it's pretty
know?
cool to see one now that you're living from it.
Right. I probably wouldn't be like
To
super.
tell. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be like super stoked on it if he like ripped my arm off, or you know, like my face was just like mangled, and
Yeah, no.
so yeah. But you know, up there you don't really, at least where I fish, there's not a ton of like bear attacks. It happens once in a while, and it's usually like bikers or joggers, because they kind of scare the bear, like they sneak up on it, you know.
Yeah.
And then the bear like gets spooked, and then I think it's just an instinctual thing, you know, and like the bear gets scared, like it's probably gonna attack you. So, which yeah, so very happy that didn't happen. But that was like a really, looking back now, I mean, that was a really cool experience, and you know, yeah, I mean, I guess it makes for a good story too.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's crazy. There's a movie, so now it's like it. Like, part of me is like, you're obviously fine. You know, bears generally, for the most part, are more scared of you than you are of them. Then
Right.
my girlfriend and I, we watched this movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's called like Backcountry or something like that. Where they went hiking and they got lost and they just got terrorized by a bear, and the boyfriend was like eaten alive, like
Really?
crazy. So now every time I'm in the woods, like I went up camping in Champlain, that's all I could think about was like that movie
Bears.
Backcountry.
Yeah.
Like, I don't
I
know.
think.
I'm sitting there thinking about it the whole time. It's like, God.
Yeah, dude. I think like bear attacks. I mean, from what I understand, I was just talking to my roommate about this the other day, but like they happen here in Montana, like a lot more than at least where I was in Alaska. I mean, I guess there's some places that it might be a little different, but yeah, I mean, it was never a big concern when we were there, especially if you're in a boat. You know, I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's no biggie at all. So, but yeah, that was cool. Alaska is just it's just a badass place. You see a lot of cool stuff. You know, moose and bears, and you know, and the fishing is usually pretty good. So yeah, if you ever get a chance, like, you know, go up there. It'll change your life, honestly. Like, you know, for better or for worse, it's good to mine. You know, so.
So you've been doing a lot of guiding, yeah, obviously all over the place. Is there a species that you are most passionate about chasing?
Yeah, I would say definitely king salmon in Alaska, especially on the Kenai. Over the last you know, even the last 15, 20 years, the king salmon fishing on the Kenai has kind of taken a hit. It's just like a lot of things, it's not as good as it once was. But they're still huge. I mean, the Kenai still has, you know, I'd say probably the biggest king salmon in the world. It's where the world record was caught. And it still kicks them out. Not as many, but it's sort of like, it's fun because it's kind of like trophy hunting a little bit. That's like what I would tell my clients anyways. It's like, you know, you're kind of looking for, you know, a couple bites sometimes. Like you're really fishing for, you know, the apex predator. And like when you do finally hook one, like it's and get to fight one, it's pretty unreal. They're coming straight out of the ocean into the river. And so you're fighting them in really fast current. The Kenai is a pretty quick river. And so, I mean, those fish are already super strong, but then when you throw in like 7-8 mile per hour current, like it changes everything, you know, and it's not a big river by any means as far as the width goes. So it's cool. I mean, you're fighting them in like close combat, shallow water. They'll jump sometimes. Like, you know, I had one time that like came and we were fighting it and just screamed towards the bank, and I watched it like launch itself onto the bank, like probably 6 feet. And then in the same motion, it like jumped back and launched back into the water. Like it was unbelievable. Like it was nothing. It did it like it was nothing. So yeah, I mean, they're a really cool fish. They're hard to hook, hard to land. They're like perfect, you know, I mean, they're super, super cool.
That's crazy. So when you're chasing after these things, you know, what's the typical rig that you're using chasing?
Sure. So we do, pretty much most of the time we're doing what's called back trolling. So basically what you're doing, so let's say, you know, you're in your boat on the river and you're facing upstream. So you have the nose of the boat pointed upstream. And what you do is you fish with big big plugs. They're called quick fish. So they're kind of banana shaped. They're like, like a lazy Ike
Yeah,
is.
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a way bigger lazy Ike. Lure Jensen makes them. They're big. They're probably a lot of times 5.5 inches. They're really big and they're super aggressive. So they really get down and like dig into the gravel. And so what you do is you're pointing your boat upstream and then you let the plugs out behind the boat. And then what the current does is it keeps them down. It's like the current is like working your plug down into the water. And then what you do is you just have the boat in gear. And so what's happening is the boat's actually going downstream, but you're just keeping it in gear and like enough gas that like you're just barely moving downstream. So your plugs are working downstream and then the fish are swimming upstream. So then the fish are, if I'm the fish, the plug's coming down in my face as I'm swimming, through a hole. And then the salmon, when they get in a river, they're only there to spawn. Like their dietary system totally shuts down and they die. All of them die. Every fish that comes into the river is going to die. So they're not really they're not focused on eating. So it's kind of challenging because you have to put that plug like right in their face to get them to bite. Like we call it like the box or like the window. Like it's got to go like right there because they usually won't come out of their way to eat it. So you got to kind of like back it down, and it's definitely a little bit of luck too. You could make like the perfect pass through a hole and just no fish in it. But when they hit it, dude, I mean, it's unbelievable how hard they hit those things. Like, because you have the rods and rod holders, and like when they hit, I mean, I've seen like rod holders break. Like I've had rods break. Like it is the most like violent takedown ever. Like it's the sickest thing. But I mean, they just absolutely, because something just snaps inside of them, and they just have to eat it. Like it's just aggression, and they're eating it to like kill it, like they're gonna like absolutely destroy it. So yeah, that's how we do it for the kings. So like that's pretty cool. But for guys that like to bass fish, like you and me, we fish for silvers or coho in August and September, and like I kind of equate them to like the salmon version of a bass, or the bass version of a salmon. Would that be right? Anyways, they're a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a lot they remind me a lot of a bass because we fish them with like spinners, like inline spinners, or like fish a lot of jigs for them, like big like marabou jigs, and you twitch the jig. So it's almost like, I mean, I've done that for bass before, like twitching, like really aggressive, like snap jigging, and that's super fun because that really is like it's like bass fishing, and but they're big and they're really aggressive, and there's a lot of them. So they're like, I really like the kings because they're big, like 40, 50, 60 pounds. But the silvers are, usually between 10 and 20 pounds. But they're a little more fun as far as like a fishing aspect goes, because like the rod's always in your hand. And then we do like bobber and eggs for them too. And like that's a lot of fun and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think you could catch them on, a lot of traditional bass gear. Like I've wanted to try like, there's some places in Alaska, not where I'm at, but there's some places where guys will catch them on like Zara spooks, like big spooks.
Okay.
And they'll come up and eat that, which I think that would be awesome. The Kenai just doesn't have enough clarity, I think, for that to work. I've tried it and I think the current's a little too fast. But yeah, I mean, it's just like some of the videos you can find them on YouTube. It's just epic of like salmon coming up and eating on top, like a bass would.
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, they're cool. They're cool. Yeah, August, September is a great time to be in Alaska for sure. But yeah, I would say probably if I had to pick the king salmon.
So do you miss your bass fishing in Minnesota at all?
Man, it sounds bad, but not really.
I guess we're gonna have to keep the show. I guess this will never air then.
I know it's not good. And I mean, I grew up, that's all, like, I mean, literally all I did. I lived like 30 minutes from Mille Lacs, and so I've fished Mille Lacs a ton. And I still, smallmouth are still my favorite, thing to fish for back home. But yeah, I mean, just the Alaska thing and then the Florida thing, it just sort of, like I said, it kind of wrecks you in terms of fishing, at least for me a little bit. But I still really like to bass fish, and I did some bass fishing when I was down in Florida too, just like kind of pond hopping and stuff. And that was cool because I mean, sometimes those guys catch 10, 12 pound bass out of these like little ponds.
Yeah.
Which is cool because the arm bass they don't get that big in Minnesota, not even close. So I never caught anything like that big, but yeah, I mean, there are certain things like certain ways of fishing bass that I miss. Like I always really liked like pre-spawn smallmouth. Like that was my favorite, like just like pick up a jerk bait and then just like, fish that all day, or a hair jig. I really miss that stuff. And because there's, great, really good smallmouth fishing in Minnesota. And, Mille Lacs is the obvious one, but there's like really good small lakes too, especially north of Brainerd, the farther north you go, where it's like there's lots of smallmouth, and it's cool too because it's not as busy. Mille Lacs is a really busy fishery. But yeah, I'll take it back. I miss smallmouth fishing. Yeah, I miss smallmouth.
I was gonna say smallmouth never leaves somebody's heart. Come on now.
Yeah. No, I do miss. Well, look how much I just talked about. I mean, obviously I lost a little bit, but yeah, I mean, smallmouth, they're badass. They're cool. I mean, I miss big smallies.
So, I asked if there's like a favorite fish, and you said obviously the salmon. Would that stay the same if I asked you if there's a favorite fish that you like to guide for? Will that stay the same, or is there a different fish that maybe it's like you feel relieved to go guide for, or that you have a
sure? Yeah, so I would say it'd still be salmon, but not the king. So there's the pink salmon, they're called. So if you ever seen like pictures of them, they're the ones that get a huge hump on their back, like a really big hump. And pink salmon or humpies, and those run every other year on the Kenai. So you don't get them every year, but like they run on even years. So like this would be a pink year this year, and like they come in by like, dude, the amount of fish that come into the river, it's nuts. Like it's one of those things where like you can sit, and like my first year up there was a pink year, and it was 2018, and like one day I just had like a family, and we just like got the counter out, and I mean I think we landed like 65 fish in like 7 hours. Like, it's nuts. Like there's a ton. So I really like guiding for those because for me, it was like always a very low pressure trip. Like you pretty much knew you were going to catch fish. Like if they were in the river, it was like, I hate to call it a guarantee, but it pretty much was. Like there's just that many of them, and they're super aggressive. They eat everything, like everything. So I like that because it was like, the king fishing is pretty high stress because like some days like you don't even get a bite, and that's kind of tough sometimes for people to. I understand people spend a lot of money to come fish in Alaska, so I mean that's kind of a tough pill to swallow, I think, for people sometimes when like the fishing might just suck one day, and like you might not even hook one, especially fishing for kings. But
I
with the pinks, I mean,
it's tough on
the
you.
pinks were sick. Yeah, I mean but so then when the pinks would show up in like August and September, it was like, like the pressure's off, like it's pretty gravy from there on out, because you can just sit and beat them up. But the only knock on them is their meat goes bad pretty fast. Like all salmon do eventually when they hit the river, but they turn like really quick and start to get mushy, and they're pretty good smoked, but they're definitely not the best eating salmon by any stretch of the imagination. But
It's so interesting. I've been so intrigued just because I have very little knowledge on salmon and trout, so it's always cool to have you guys. Like I've had a few guys on who steelhead fish, trout fish, fish, and talking to them is so intriguing because I learn a lot each time I have you guys on.
Yeah,
whereas like the bass fishermen, I do learn when I have a lot of these bass guys
right
on, but there's a lot more of it obviously that I already know.
And I hear you. And I think too, at least for me, I mean, I think the more kinds of different fishing that you do, I mean, it just makes you better, like a better fisherman across the board. Like I would say, going to Alaska even and fishing up there has made me a better fisherman back in Minnesota, even though they're totally different. I mean, I just think the more kind of, varied as far as like, I mean, definitely different for a guy that fishes the Elite Series where like that's going to be it is bass, but I guess just sort of as kind of a broad range angler, I think doing, different kinds of fishing really makes you better because there's stuff that like, you wouldn't even, think about doing maybe until you do it somewhere else for a different kind of fish and it might work, for what you do back home. I mean, you're just kind of like, I think fishing in different areas too, for sure. I think, that definitely just makes you a little more well-rounded and, probably helps you catch more fish, or at least it makes you think you do,
Yeah, no, 100%. It just fishing in different locations, fishing in different scenarios. fishing in, you know, different weather conditions with
Mm-hmm.
different dates, different, you know, whatever variable is different can help you in different circumstances and ultimately helps you be a better and more well-rounded angler. You know, it's just
Right.
whether it's
And
species wise, you know, whatever it may be,
yeah.
it's pretty cool.
And I think too, I mean, and you can, yeah, I don't know, maybe you agree with this or not, but like learning how to fish like a river system, like, cause I grew up fishing just primarily lakes, you know, Minnesota, lots of lakes. And then I went to school in La Crosse, Wisconsin, which is right on the Mississippi. And like, you know, started fishing that, and like those guys that fish rivers all the time, I mean, they are hammers, you know, because it changes a lot and
Mm-hmm.
fast. And like those guys can like adapt, you know, and then especially, you know, the really good tournament guys on the river, I mean, like it could totally change from, you know, one day to the next. I mean, the water level can come up 4 feet, you know, and those guys can roll with that, and they know like what's going to happen, where their fish are going to go, and that kind of thing. But yeah, I think like, because I was like a big time lake guy, and then going to fish, you know, a big river system like the Mississippi really, really helped me, like, you know, kind of learn how to adapt and like on the fly too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%. I would agree with it. Yeah, because you know, fishing in those different conditions, you know, current moving water versus a
Yeah.
stagnant system, you know, it obviously helps you. But like you mentioned, you know, making them be able to adapt, that is huge, especially for like, we'll put it into bass fishing terms. When you are hit with different conditions on different days, let's put it in a like a 3-day tournament scenario.
Right.
One day is sunny skies, calm, warm. The next day you got overcast and windy. Being able to switch, because you know, there's going to be a lot of guys there that have a pattern that works on day one that
Right.
isn't going to work on day two. And being able to adapt and know how to focus your mindset, know what variables, what you need to change, whether
Right.
what's on your boat deck or where you are fishing, like it's being able to
Right.
adapt is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
And I think that's what makes those guys like on the Elite Series, or, you know, on the MLF, or, you know, all that. I think that's why they're so good, and they're a tier above, you know, everyone else, is because they can do that. I mean, fishing is so much decision making. It's, you know, I think
100%.
it's more decision making than, especially tournament
90%.
fishing, than anything else, you know.
90%
And
decision making, 10%, you know, talent, knowledge, whatever you guys.
right, I mean, those guys can just, you know, I mean, and I still follow like tournament bass fishing like fairly closely, and I mean, it's just those guys are so unbelievably good at, you know, deciding, like packing it up and totally bagging a game plan and doing something else, you know, where like I kind of have a tough time, I think, just in general when I'm fishing. Like if something works and I'm there the next day and it's not working, like, you know, I get frustrated, and I'm like, you know, this should work. Like this should work, you know, and like
Yeah.
have a tough time bailing out on that for something totally different, where those guys will do it, you know, sometimes they know in like 20 minutes, you know what I mean? Like they're like, oh, it's not going to work. Like, and
Yeah.
then totally do something else. And yeah, I think that's like a really impressive, you know, skill to have. And yeah, I guess that's, you know, that's why those guys do it for a living. So
Exactly. Have you been watching the MLF heavy hitters tournament that they've had going on?
I
Round
haven't.
day
So
two is today.
yeah,
So,
I
so
don't, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that it's an interesting concept that they have. So obviously they have round one, round two, which this is the two groups. So
Yep.
if you so round one and round two both consist of 2 days each. So
Sure.
if you have the biggest bass in round one, you get 25 grand. Biggest
Okay.
bass round two, you get 25 grand. And then you have the biggest bass the tournament, that's another 100 grand. And if you win it, that's another 100 grand. So like there's so
Wow.
much on the line. But I think what was interesting about today was all of these guys, you know, you were talking about what should work, what is the norm, what, you know,
Right.
you should or should not be doing. All these guys are power fishing. They're flipping. They're punching. They're burning a
Yeah.
trap, chatterbait. Mark Rose, the guy who had the biggest bass of today, and 9-2, was throwing out just a simple rubber worm.
Right.
It's going
And
old
getting
school
them.
on him.
Yeah. Dude, he's a hammer, man. That guy's an offshore wizard, you know?
Yeah. I do not want to
Yeah.
go on a ledge or anything offshore
He's legit,
grass.
he's legit, dude. I like him.
It's just it's cool because there's so many. I love seeing patterns that show up in scenarios where people say it'll never work. I
Right.
love seeing it. I love when things get proved wrong.
Right.
I,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
love being wrong myself. I love being told I'm wrong and being proven wrong. I just because you learn from it. I think that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah, no, I think the best thing that happens to people is they get their ass kicked, like honestly, like it's like and that would happen to me. I mean, in Alaska a lot. It's a humbling place, like they call it, like my roommate up there, Billy, called the Kenai the great equalizer, because like one day, like you go out and you just crush, like you just have your day, and then the next day you could go out and just, get whooped. Like it's just, yeah. I mean, I think it's really good to to kind of take those beatings, because like it really does. It makes you a way better fisherman, especially like mentally too. And it's tough. It's tough pill to swallow sometimes, like when it really just beats you up. But it's a good thing, I think, most of the time. You gotta have a mix of good and bad.
Yeah. No, 100%. It all comes down to your mindset. How you take it. But
right.
So, question for you then. Obviously you're doing the guiding. Well, your plan was to in recent years was to guide, and that is still, I assume, is your plan once we get out of these weird times we're in. So I was going to ask you, career goals. So a short term versus a long term. Obviously short term, we probably just want to get out of this slump and weird situation we're in. But
yeah,
what is the goal for you? What point is it you're going to be like, okay, I've made it. This is where I'm set and satisfied.
Right.
The rest of my life.
Yeah, I mean, I guess sort of the tough thing about being a full-time guide. I mean, it's an awesome job. I mean, it's the best job I've ever had for sure, and I love it. But it's not like definitely not like an easy lifestyle, or like an easy way to make a living. So it's kind of tough. You don't, most of the time you're not making that much money, and then you're kind of just sort of scraping by and like bouncing around a lot. And now that I'm young, like I can do that, no problem. But also at the same time too, I mean, I have thought like, maybe I don't want to guide forever, and so regardless, I guess, of what I do, I'd like to stay doing something related to fishing. I mean, that's probably like the ultimate goal. So maybe I do the guiding thing for a while, and then end up not doing it forever and doing something still within the the fishing market and that kind of thing. I think that would be great. But yeah, I mean, I think I'll always try to do something somewhat related to fishing. So I think the ultimate guiding goal for me would be, I mean, there's one place I really want to go, and that's to South America, like in the Patagonias. So that's in like Argentina and like Chile. There's like phenomenal fishing down there, dude. Like it's legit, like really good trout fishing. And then there's actually they actually have king salmon down there. So like 30 years ago, they stocked these fish down there from, I think they're like Columbia River strain fish. But they stocked them down there as like an experiment, and it like worked, and it worked like big time. Like it's kind of, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's all that well known, but like down there is like some of the best king salmon fishing like in the world right now, and that's in the winter time. So since it's in the southern hemisphere, like that's their summer. So I mean, I would love to be able to go down there, but it's kind of obviously it's like a tough thing to get into. There's quite a few lodges down there, but I think they mostly hire like local guides, which I totally understand. But yeah, if I could somehow get in down there, I think that would be like the sickest thing ever. To be able to go down there for like 4 months. I mean, that would be pretty cool.
That would be incredible, dude. I'm king salmon in Colombia, Argentina, like that's.
Yeah, I know. Like it's nothing to think about.
Like, that's crazy. That's
I know, dude. I didn't know it existed until a couple of years ago. But yeah, I mean, they stocked these fish in like the 80s, and then the population is like really kind of took off, and they're like reproducing on their own, and like the conditions must set up good for them to spawn, and there's good clean gravel for them to spawn on, and it works. So yeah, I mean, they're huge, and they get like some legit like 50, 60, even 70 pounders sometimes down there. So I think that would be like the ultimate dream, I guess, for me, is to get down there. I'd like to try to go down there this winter, even if I can't like get a job, and just go for like a couple weeks and just like try to check it out,
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's awesome, dude. I hope you can do that.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the ultimate, like the one spot I guess I shouldn't say the one spot. I mean, there's a ton, like you, I mean, there's
Endless.
when you're a fisherman. I mean, there's so many places that you want to go.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
like
and I mean,
squirrel. Yeah, it's just like
exactly.
Okay, I want to go there. I want to go there. Yeah, just
Right, and it's like you only have so much time and of course money too. It's like so. I mean, that was for me anyways. The best part about guiding is you were getting paid to fish places that people paid money to go do. But it was like you were there making a little money. And you got to do it every day, which was awesome. But yeah, I don't know. Where would you want to go? Like, where would be the one place, like, if you could fish, like, where, like, where would you want to go?
That is tough.
I know, because there's so many.
I want to give it a couple years to see, because I've heard rumor that Clear Lake has become as good, if not better, than it was back in 2007. If it stays true into the next year or two, I would say Clear Lake.
Sure.
Because I have friends over there, and I work with some guys in Cali that have, for 8 days straight, put up over 30 pounds of just bass
Like
on
every day.
swim baits, top waters, anything they threw was day after day, 30 plus pounds. And it was literally, I think it was 8 days in a row of 30 plus. And
that would be pretty unreal.
Like the smallest bag they've had this spring so far that they've gone out was 25.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's like,
I mean, that would be, I mean, yeah, catching those bass up there, it's like, they don't even look real. Some of them, I mean, they're so big. I would love to do that. Like, and I've never really done like the big swim bait thing before, but I think that'd be pretty cool to just like pick that up and just be like, okay, like this is it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to pick this up. I'm going to throw like this 10-inch HUD like all day. And like, this is what I'm going to do. I think that'd be pretty cool. So I would love to do that.
Yeah, and also I would love. I had. Do you know Kyle Van Dever, Brandon Polinick's film photographer?
Yeah, I've seen him like on Instagram before.
He's doing some stuff with Sam Moore, who I recently had on here. But I had Kyle on, and one thing offline we talked about, and he showed me, was these big smallmouth lakes out in Idaho and the scenery that it has, and it's like, that would be something. That would be a place I would love to go fish. Dude,
yeah, there's like some world-class smallmouth fishing, and then you're like surrounded by like, mountains and high elevation. Like, yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. And I guess I'm not super far here. I mean, it's a good drive, but I'm,
wheels are
closer.
Yeah,
right. Now I'm starting to think if I can if I can get some time off. Yeah, no, no, that would be pretty cool. Yeah, that would be sweet. Well, I know like Fort Peck in Montana, if you've heard of that before. I'm pretty sure they have smallmouth in there, but then they have like huge pike, like really, really big pike, and big lake trout and big walleyes, and it's a pretty good drive from Bozeman. I think it's like 4 or 5 hours, but I mean, it's really not that bad, I'm starting to justify it now.
No.
Yeah, I can't take any time off. Just trout. I'm just gonna trout fish.
I hear you. Well, dude, we're gonna wrap this up in a minute here. I got two questions I like to ask everybody at the end. Before we do, I know you're taking a social media hiatus, and you're making me really think about doing the same with what's going on in today. But for people that, whether in the future or what you might have now, that might want to keep up with your travels, where can they follow you?
Yeah, for sure. So my I guess Instagram is probably the best spot. My Instagram is Will _Stolsky, I think. So yeah, Will and then _STOLSKI. And I'm taking a little bit of a hiatus right now. I'm just trying not to be on it as much. It was like really kind of sucking my time. I was just spending a lot of time on there, and but I go on it, it's fine. I'm sure by the time this comes out, I'll probably be, back on it full blown, but just a little break, a little break. So maybe it's because I haven't been catching very many big fish, and I'm just getting jealous of everyone else, So yeah,
I think it'll be linked down below so people can go follow you, and this will be up on the 10th. So it'll be Wednesday the 10th. So in 2 days, we are filming this. But Sweet, man. Well, it'll be linked down below so everybody can go follow you. I'm sure everybody will if you want to keep up with some of this guy's crazy freaking adventures he goes on. So
Yeah, and if if anybody has any questions about Alaska or Florida or just guiding in general, I mean, I haven't been doing it for a really long time, but I've learned a lot about it, and happy to help if that's kind of an avenue that people want to pursue or that kind of thing. So yeah, more than happy to talk fishing with anybody. I love fishing, pretty much more than anything else. So
I'm in complete agreement, my friend.
Yeah. So, but it's a great thing. It's like we were talking about before we started recording this. I think if everybody fished, I think the world would be a way better and more peaceful place. So I wish more people would.
Excluding the boat ramps. It's probably the only place.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, first everybody just needs to learn how to back down a trailer, and then once that's taken care of, then the rest is easy. So,
all right, dude. Well, I got two questions for you before we wrap this thing up. First question. These are completely off topic. They're questions I like to ask everybody. If you could invite any three people to sit down and have dinner with so that you could pick their brain, who would you invite and why? They don't have to be fishing related.
Sure. Well, okay, yeah. I think number one would be Leonardo DiCaprio. I think Leo is just the coolest dude. I mean, I think that guy is just dude. Okay, so speaking of Leo, me and one of my buddies were looking at this the other day. Someone made this graph, and it correlates him with all the girls that he's dated over the years, and he's never dated a girl under 20 or over 25 years old. Once they get to 25, it's this graph. It's his age, and then it has his girlfriend's age. It's so funny, dude. But it's as soon as they get to 25, which anyways, as soon as 25, that's the number for him. And then it's now his current girl. Dude, and his starting lineup is unbelievable. His current girlfriend is I think she's 21. He's 45, and she's a model, of course. But I think he's he seems like a really
interesting,
decent, genuine guy.
You don't see him about him.
Right. I think he's probably I feel like he's just kind of a semi-normal dude. I mean, maybe not, but yeah, he would be my number one. And then probably two, I think, dude, Bill Dance. I think it'd be awesome to hang out and have a beer with Bill Dance. I think Bill Dance is he's probably my favorite fishing personality ever.
Okay.
Are you a Bill Dance fan?
I am a Bill Dance fan. For me though, growing up, it was Roland Martin. And
yeah, Roland would be pretty cool too.
Really funny story about Roland Martin, real quick, before we finish this up. I was working the Classic, and across from the Douglas booth was the P-Line booth. Okay, so Scott Martin is with P-Line, and I don't know if you've watched Scott's channel at all, but he's got his friend named Billy. So Scott's got this huge line out the door for people coming to talk to him. Right. Billy's just standing off the side, just kind of just chilling. No one's coming up to him. So I started talking to Billy, just chatting it up, and super, super genuine dude. We're just talking about not even fishing, just random stuff about Alabama. Well, Roland comes and stands on the opposite side of me. So now I'm in the middle of Billy and Roland nudges me and he goes, I produced this guy, and he comes here and steals all my thunder. Now nobody knows who I am. So Billy goes over and he goes, "Kid, you know who this guy is?" And he goes, "Bill Dance?" it was Roland Martin, dude. It was the funniest thing ever.
Dude, that's so cool. Yeah. I mean, I think those old school guys are just so cool, and they've just seen it all, and they all seem they're pretty good dudes too. I mean, just and obviously great fishermen, but yeah, I think Bill Dance, Roland Martin, that's a good one too. But yeah, then man, for number three, are we doing they could be dead?
Yeah, past or present. I failed to mention that.
Past or present. I think Ernest Hemingway would be pretty cool. Okay. I think he'd have some really good stories. I'm I'm not a huge reader, but I've read The Old Man in the Sea and some of his other stuff. But he was a huge fisherman. I mean, he fished all over the place. Had a place down in the Keys, that kind of thing. So I think that would be cool. So that would probably be my three, I guess.
Awesome. I like that. That's a very unique three. Because I mean, Bill Dance I've gotten a couple times, but DiCaprio and Hemingway I had never gotten those.
I think Leo. Well, then I'd want to, like, after me and Leo got dinner, I'd want to, go out to the bar with him, and then, just kind of
See what crowd he's around. Yeah.
just get seconds. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, dude, we're gonna wrap it up right here. Just simple last question, super simple. Just favorite fishing memory.
My favorite fishing memory, probably the first king salmon I ever caught. I was 13, up in Alaska, and it was with my dad. So it was like it was pretty cool, And so I still will go back and look at the picture of that fish, and that was like a really a special thing to do with my dad, because he pretty much like a lot of guys, he taught me pretty much everything. So yeah, I would say that's probably my favorite fishing memory for sure. That's
awesome, dude. It's one way to remember, how you started. So that's pretty sweet.
Right. Yeah, man, for sure. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on, dude. This was a lot of fun. So we'll have to try to do it again.
I appreciate you taking the time, and you're always welcome on the show. And hopefully, next time we have you on, it won't take us 4 tries to get it done.
Right, we might be able to get it done in 3.
Those difficulties. But yeah, dude, I appreciate you taking the time, and really thank you for coming on.
Yep, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, talk soon.
Yep, bye-bye.
So hope you guys enjoyed that podcast with Will. It was a blast talking about a whole multitude of things, different species, different locations, guiding, life. Like, the dude is all over the place between Florida, Montana, and Minnesota, and Alaska. Like, it's incredible, the life that he's living right now. So make sure you guys go down in the description, follow him on Instagram. That's pretty incredible, some of the different guide stories that he has, and he's only 23. So it's pretty incredible what he's doing. But it is a tough time in that same fact that to be a guide right now is a tough time. But hopefully, as things move into different phases, as they carry on and times become back to normal, that these guides will get back out there and start making more money, getting their life back together, back to normal. So go and support Will. Go down the Instagram, follow him. If you're near the area where he's at, reach out to him. Maybe link up with a guide trip. You definitely won't regret it. Great dude, great talent, great fisherman. So hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. If you want to watch, you can head over and subscribe to the Egbert Outdoors YouTube channel. But if you like listening to these podcasts, you can always find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Angler app, Anchor app, pretty much anything out there. So thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.